Hello, this is Photography Gamer. Welcome back to the channel. In today's episode, I'll break down the photo mode in Need for Speed Heat on the PS4. I'll break down the settings, explain what they do, and show you a few little tips. And I'll finish the episode with a couple of examples that I'll just talk you through. So let's have a look at the basic settings first. Right, basic settings, R3, if we click that in, that is to take a snapshot. If we click in R3 and hold it, that is Snapshot Pro. That kind of enters the photo mode. The left and right analog sticks move and rotate your camera so you can compose your image. L1 and R1 tilt the image. That's like rolling, tilting. It puts just a slant on the image if you want to create a sense of dynamism. L2 and R2 cranes the camera up or down, so that's good if you want to change your perspective. Do you want a low perspective? Do you want a high perspective? You've got a nice range there. If you use the D-pad up and down, that will zoom in or zoom out. This is good for micro adjustments. It's very good if you want to take a picture of your driver in the car. Otherwise, I just use it for very small alterations to my framing, just to sort of tweak it. Square button shows you the effects. Triangle hides the UI, so that's when you want to take your screenshot. The X button takes a snapshot. If you press the options button, that will show you the controls on the screen. That's very helpful. Almost putting me out of business here, but don't bother, listen to me instead. And if you press the touchpad, that will go to photos, so that's online, and then you can scroll through the photographs. Finally, circle exits the photo mode. Okay, other settings. So if you press L1 and R1, that will switch between all of the available tabs. So effects tab 1, we have two things within it, filters and strength. Filters are basically overlays that create a sense of color, different definition. You've got them on Instagram. I'm sure we all know what a filter is. Strength is the intensity, whether you want 0 of the filter or 100 and somewhere in between. Usually 100 is a bit severe, so you want to just dial it down a bit so you find the nice level. Effects tab 2, what have we got? So first one, we've got exposure compensation. So exposure raises the light on the lighter areas, not so much on the shadow. Then we have chromatic aberration. This is a weird kind of filter that creates a sense of blurring, distortion, coloring borders. It's very surreal. I don't use it much, but it's good for like a sense of disorientation. Then we have focal distance and depth of field. These work together. So depth of field is essentially how much is going to be in focus. Focal distance is where the focus point will originate. So you choose the origin point of the focus, then you decide how much depth of field. The more in focus or the less. Depends if you want everything in focus or you just want the car in focus and everything else to be blurry. Completely up to you. Finally, lens distortion. It creates an interesting effect on the actual image. Effects tab 3. Firstly, vignettes. That's a shadowy border around the image, essentially used to bring your eye centrally. Then we have film grain, not particularly useful in a game about flashy smooth cars, but it's here if you want to add a bit of texture. Bodywork damage, if you've smashed your car up but you want to get it on or off, you might not want to take a picture of your car looking in absolute state, so you can change that here. Lens flare, that's a sort of visual effect to create a sort of flashy lens effect. And then drivers, do you want your driver in the shot or not? Depends, if you're doing a driving shot with no driver, looks a bit weird. If you're doing like a showroom shot without the driver, that probably makes sense. Effects tab 4, we have saturation. This is color. Take it out, you've got black and white. Add more, it becomes very pop arty. And then we have red, green and blue tinting. This is a micro adjustment of saturation. So if you want to just change the tone of the image to a small degree in terms of one of those colors, you can do that there. And then you have contrast. Contrast creates a definition between light and dark areas and it just strengthens it. So it's good if you want to have a more sort of punchy type of image. Okay, that is the mode. Overall, I'd say it's got lots of settings with most things that you will need to take a good photo. But maybe there could have been a few more fun things in there just to make it a bit more, entertaining. But I'd say it's pretty good for what it's got. I'd give it 8.5 out of 10 for the photo mode. Right, to wrap up, I've got a few photos I'm just going to talk you through. So here's one I did earlier. So this is this is an example of how you can use the tilting, the rolling to create a sense of dynamic movement. Because if that was a flat image, it would look different. Here, having it on a slant makes it feel more like motion orientated. Filter wise, I've stripped out some of the color, I've increased contrast so that the definition between the light and the dark is a lot stronger, and it's got a kind of almost like a film noir-ish feel. This one, completely different. This is like colour explosion. So we've got pink, we've got turquoise, we've got all sorts of warm, lovely colours. This is a night shot, so I used, I think is it a gas station in the background? I blurred it out, and I used some lens flare, I bumped colour up, and again I just framed my car to one side, driving into the distance. So very colourful, a good example of how you can use the focus to blur out the background and add lots of colour. And here's just a basic one. This is probably where I use the zoom function because you can't get that close otherwise. So this is just a nice little portrait of the driver sitting there in the car, cruising around. Didn't use any real focus quality, a slight color filter, but again, this is a very basic. This is just an example of framing, how to frame a subject, a little bit of the background in there. Pretty basic stuff, but you know, does what it needs to do. Right, there you go. That's another mode covered, and yeah, hope it was useful. I hope you can use the photo mode a little bit better now and take some nice shots. Enjoy. But this is Photography Gamer. I need a drink because my voice is going. I'm signing off. Thank you for watching. Au revoir.